The corrupt Department of Justice, that is Merrick Garland, has turned his head while Barack Obama pulled the trigger on Hunter Biden. This is to pressure Joe Biden out of the race, I believe. Welcome to Doug in Exile. I'm Doug TenNapel. This is where the happy patriots are.
New federal charges against the president's son, Hunter Biden. They have not yet been made public. We learned of their existence just before airtime and do not know the details.
That's Anderson Pooper Scooper. And then the details came out later. Here's CBS News.
We have breaking news to report. A federal grand jury has indicted President Biden's son, Hunter Biden, for tax evasion.
That Hunter Biden engaged in what they call a 4-year scheme to not pay $1.5 million in federal taxes that he owed for the tax years 2016 through 2017.
All these dates are important. All of this crimes that they're getting him on happened between 2016 and 2020. Why is that important? Because that's when Trump was in office and Joe Biden was not in office. These charges will not bounce off onto Joe Biden. So this is a threat to Joe Biden saying we're going after your son in this narrow bracket, and you're next if you don't back out of the election.
But this is the second indictment brought by Special Counsel David Weiss's office. Federal prosecutors first filed charges against Hunter Biden in the District of Delaware, and those were 3 felony counts related to his alleged unlawful possession of a firearm.
Okay, these came down from David Weiss. We got to remember, we've been doing videos on this guy too, or mentioned him anyways, working under Merrick Garland. David Weiss is the guy that was in charge of protecting Biden. And now David Weiss is laying the charges down.
Now let's look at how things have changed. Now Hunter Biden is looking at 9 separate charges: tax evasion, tax fraud, and non-payment of taxes. And really importantly, these 2, there's 1 count of evasion, 2 counts of fraud. These are felonies now, much more serious. Tax evasion carries a max sentence of 5 years. Fraud carries a max sentence of 3 years. Nobody gets the max, but much more serious than before.
The Obamas or the Clintons or whoever's in charge, I don't know who it is, but they just now said, look, Hunter is going to jail, Joe. You better back out because your polls are too low. You can't beat Trump. And I believe this was an easy one for them to strong arm. They just went to Merrick Garland and said, you will go to David Weiss and free him up to arrest Hunter.
If we look at the indictment, this alleges a scheme covering 4 years, 2016 through and including 2019. The allegation is that during that time, Hunter Biden made around $7 million in income, primarily from foreign companies in Ukraine and China. Doesn't allege that those were bribes, does not allege Hunter Biden was engaged in illegal influence peddling as a lobbyist.
See, this newscaster thinks it's a big win that it doesn't involve foreign influence and all the charges, because those are all charges that would go up to Joe Biden. That's why they did not put them in this case. They only went for tax evasion to avoid Joe Biden. They're still protecting Joe. They're threatening him, but protecting him.
The indictment alleges, as one example, that in 2018, he claimed he had $388,000.
Okay, forget that. Here's the picture of David Weiss. This is the guy that was protecting Hunter Biden for 7 years. What suddenly happened? Nothing changed. The only thing that changed is Biden's poll numbers have gone through the floor. That's the only thing that's changed in 7 years. So David Weiss goes from protecting him. They had whistleblowers come out and saying that David Weiss was protecting him. And then now suddenly David Weiss comes out, does these tax evasion charges on Hunter Biden. That was so easy. What does it mean? Watch for Joe Biden to step out of the election voluntarily or make some kind of a deal where he pardons his own son, but they have to charge him first. Can't pardon him before he's charged.
The sources of evidence that DOJ uses, they use Hunter Biden's memoir. They use things he says in his book against him. It's quoted extensively in the indictment.
These charges were out in the public. They were in a book he published. They didn't even have to do, David Weiss didn't have to do any investigating. It was just sitting there by everyone. And they charge him with what was in the book that everyone we've been reading for 7 years and saying he's guilty. He's guilty. Now they go, I wonder if he's guilty.
There is no such charge. The crime here is the tax part of that. And I don't see any link in the indictment or even in Comer's statement to Joe Biden.
I would be waiting and watching for any time Biden or Jill making an announcement, he's too sick to run and he's dropping out. Am I onto something, or is this just wacky conspiracy stuff? Does this make sense? Is Biden going to drop out voluntarily to save his son? I'm Doug in Exile.